Hey, what's up? It's Wanda Sykes. I'm here to remind you about something super important, getting your breast screened. Because trust me, your breast health should be a priority. Early detection for breast cancer can change the game, which is why you should visit yourattentionplease.com to learn more. And do me a favor, if you've already had a breast cancer screening, remind your friends and family to visit yourattentionplease.com too. We gotta look out for our girls.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
No matter how hard we try, we still seem to get pulled back into the great state of Arkansas. Tonight is no exception. We're going to cover two cases. One does not get the attention it deserves, while the other is by far the most famous case in Arkansas history. You're listening to the Mysterious Brews podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of Nina Ingram and an update on the West Memphis 3.
It's a case that's now 6 years old, but to the family of Nina Ingram and detectives on the case, it's as fresh as ever.
New at 6, 4029's Kelly Johnson brings us more on this cold case story that's anything but.
People were standing everywhere and policemen, and they had the tape and, and all of that.
Judy Ingram stands in front of her daughter's old apartment in Fayetteville on this ironically beautiful and peaceful day, reliving what has become her nightmare.
Well, I feel such a evil presence, because I know this is where it happened.
It being her daughter Nina Ingram's murder. She was found inside her apartment, strangled to death on April 22nd, 6 years ago.
It was so sudden and so uncalled for and unexpected. It just comes at odd times. It just affects your heart.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist basement somewhere in the bowels of Georgia. Well, Coach, we about froze to death for a couple of days. It's been in the 60s for a couple of days. It's going to rain, and it's going to get back down in the 20s again. I mean, welcome to the South.
Where I was, or where I am, when I left to go to work, it was 32, and when I left to come home, it was 72. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for a 40-degree jump.
I will say that is typical. I mean, that shit will play out until probably the middle of May.
Yeah, well, I know they were calling because my class watches the news every day, watches the weather rather, and then we watch CNN 10 student news. But the weather said that, don't plant yet because there's still freezes to come. And it's like that false winter, that false spring is a true thing in Georgia.
Yeah, it is. And then my birthday's the end of April, very end of April. And I can't tell you, I used to play golf all the time. I cannot tell you how many times I would go play golf on my birthday and I would freeze my ass off. So the Loretto Chapel, our boy, quintessential prince of the podcast, the one, the only, Heater, sent me a message today, and I got to find it. I thought he was in.
We commented on the page. I think it was him. I'm pretty sure it was him, or it was Heaton. Heater or Heaton. I always just don't bother reading their last name. One of them said, quote, "We all know albinos are evil."
I know. I saw that too. Even my wife asked, she was like, which one of y'all hating on albinos? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
That was me, and I stick to it. I stick by that statement. And if we happen to have, it was Heaton. It was Mr. Heaton. If we have any albino listeners, please don't reach out because I'm not talking about you.
We're talking about the creepy albino monks.
Yeah.
All right, so Heater says that FYI, the Sisters of Loretto are from, you guessed it, Loretto, Kentucky, which is about 20 miles from where he lives, and that town is the home to the Maker's Mark Distillery. They still have a large convent there and provide all the wheat used by makers to make the bourbon.
Listen, I've been to some distilleries in my life, okay? Even more disappointing than Jack Daniels, because Jack Daniels doesn't give you any samples because it is a dry county. Jack Daniels is a dry county, if you can believe it. It's Lynchburg, whatever county Lynchburg is in. I don't know if it's Lynchburg County. I don't know that much about it. But like Heaven Hills, which makes Evan Williams and Elijah Craig and places like that, they give you 2 samples. Heaven Hills specifically, they gave you a 10-year single barrel and an 18-year single barrel sample. Okay. When I went to Maker's Mark, they gave you a sample of Maker, because all they make is Maker's Mark. They give you a sample of Maker's Mark and a sample of Maker's Mark before it gets aged in the barrel. And let me tell you, that shit needs to be aged in the barrel because that was some of the worst tasting stuff I have ever drank in my life. And I'm talking, if you've ever had real moonshine, you know how abrasive real moonshine will be. It's like, oh God. But at least it tastes, I don't know. It tastes, the Maker's Mark, raw Maker's Mark was just so bad. It was so bad that if I was paying the mountain man in Tennessee for that moonshine, I'd never come back.
My wife's uncle loves Maker's 101, and he got that for his 70th birthday, I think. Anyway, he loves going to Maker's, and he let me try it when we were up there for the big family reunion. It was pretty good. In the words of Ron White, you only have so much whiskey and scotch in you, you know, and I tried to use all mine up within the first 5 years that I was teaching. And I had a handle of Makers that I would drink religiously for about the first year me and my wife was married. She thought she had married a alcoholic. Man, that stuff was good, though. But anyway, he goes on to say that on a side note, as soon as you boys said St. Michael's School, I immediately pictured Charlie Baldry from Young Guns telling the girls at the dance, quote, I shall receive my degree in medicine from St. Michael's in July and begin my missionary work, end quote.
Which one was that? Was that the Pugilist?
That was the one that got married down in Old Mexico.
Yep, the Pugilist. That's a good damn movie, but when you want to talk about sequels that were better than the original, Young Guns 2 is in that conversation. Terminator 2 might always win that conversation, but Lord have mercy, Young Guns 2 was so much better than Young Guns 1.
Did you know that Tom Cruise is in Young Guns 1?
Absolutely. How would I not know that?
You don't know a bunch of shit.
I'm not arguing that. I won't. I can't, and I won't.
Oh,
but I do know a lot of shit about movies. That movie did come out before my sister worked at the movies, but my sister started working at the movies like a couple months after Jurassic Park came out. And from then till like 22 years later, I pretty much saw every single solitary movie that was released in theaters for free.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
I did. She got mad at me one time and she charged me for one movie, and I swear to God, I almost got banned from that movie theater for life. I was so pissed off.
Look at you.
I mean, you know me. You know I would never make anyone mad at me.
Never.
Especially a sibling.
Never.
I swore I'd never forget the movie I paid for, but I can't remember it offhand now.
Blocked it out of your memory?
Huh?
Blocked it out of your memory?
No, I made a point to remember it. I think it might have been The Mummy 2, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just getting old. I can't remember things now.
I can't remember shit either. All right, we got a new patron, Dare. The artist known as Dare, D-A-R-E.
To keep a kid off drugs?
Nope, not that one. Just Dare. No address, and it is a generic email address. But we do thank you.
You know what's funny? Is the DARE program. When we were all in 5th grade, none of us knew what drugs were or what they would do to us or how much they cost or where to find them. And then suddenly one day, a sheriff deputy showed up and told us everything we needed to know about drugs. If you don't want no part of this, Dewey. This drug has no hangover. It makes all your problems go away, and it's the cheapest drug there is. Like, I had no idea what marijuana was. And then old sheriff's deputy showed up. Red Swanson was his name, I remember. And he told us everything we needed to know about it. And my mama, like, I swear, this is true, it's a true story. My mama, when they did a DARE presentation at the middle school where she worked at, she asked him for a sample of marijuana. And he gave her a marijuana roach, like no bigger than a 1/7 of an inch. And she brought it home and she lit it on fire. And she said, if you ever smell anything like this, wherever you are, you need to leave.
Mama Coach throwing the gauntlet.
And I was like, that smells pretty good. So that's a true story. I cannot tell a lie on this podcast.
Oh, that's the first one. Anyway.
That is not the first one. I promise you. I may have said many more, but that one's 100% true. So
our coach alluded to in the opening about the great state of Arkansas, and there's a lot going on recently. Friends of the podcast have reached out via our Facebook chat page. If you're not a member of that, what are you doing with your life? There's a lot of...
It really is a great state. It's kind of like the stepchild of the southern states because where it's located. But I promise you, if you ever go there, you will appreciate it. It's a pretty nice state. And I know I've said it before. I've been to Little Rock. I went to the Bill Clinton Presidential Library, which I enjoyed. Little Rock was okay, but we went to Hot Springs. And I'm telling you, man, if I ever have to run from the law, and I hope they don't listen to the podcast, because if I have to run from the law and change my identity and blah, 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 I'm going to Hot Springs. I loved it. I loved my time there.
Like all the old gangsters, you headed to Hot Springs.
Yeah, you never bet that. But that was factually.
Yeah.
Hot Springs was the vacation spot of all the gangsters. And there was a rule that whatever your beef was in Chicago or New York, you didn't bring it to Hot Springs.
Yeah, and then I think Wisconsin, they had basically the same thing. No beefs up there. It was just a place for them to get away and actually bring their families. So,
well, if you do like the Mafia tour in Hot Springs, they'll tell you straight up, like Al Capone sat like 2 tables down from his enemies in Chicago that he eventually killed in the St. Valentine's Day massacre. But he didn't bring any of that shit into Arkansas.
We don't take too kindly to law around here, you hear?
You hear me, law dog? Kansas law dog.
We don't take too kindly to law.
I always thought he said Kansas slaw dog. We don't take too kindly, Kansas slaw dog. You take your slaw upstate.
All right, so the little case, and it's not a little case, and I don't mean to make light of it. It's just a case.
When we say a little case, we mean the fact that, unfortunately, we live and die by the ability to research online. You live and die by Reddit and other sources. I live and die by YouTube. And when we see a case like this, it's a case that needs to be brought to attention. It deserves to be brought to attention. But it's just not, it doesn't have a strong online presence. And we even reached out on our private chat to the several people that live in Arkansas, and they were like, I've never heard of it.
No, and the only thing
it's very sad.
Yeah, the only thing that they had heard of was just what has been in the news. And so I looked up and trying to find if there was a Facebook page, because most families will start a Facebook page to help keep the case in the news. And there's nothing. There was I think there was a GoFundMe set up to help with paying for private investigators or testing or something like that. And then that kind of went out. It's no longer, that Facebook page is no longer available. So Nina Ingram.
Well, hold on. Well, all I found in my research about her, the only Facebook thing I saw out of all the Facebook pages about missing people and unsolved crimes and blah, 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 the only thing I found was a page called All the Lost Girls. And all they had was a picture of her and 4 short paragraphs. And by the word short, I mean they didn't follow the 5-paragraph theme rule. They ain't all 5 sentences. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a short little blurb and just a picture of her. And I mean, that's sad, honestly.
So the one page that I found was Who Killed Nina Ingram, and it has not been posted on since August of last year. But it looks like, according to that page, there was a foundation set up as well as a website. But like I said, that website is now defunct and you can't get to it. A lot of our friends on that Who Killed Nina Ingram page had posted on the anniversary in 2022. I think it was in 2022 and 2023 about how much they missed her, and then they were reminiscing about stuff that they had done when she was alive and they were kids. Now, there is a very short podcast, if you can find it, because it also has been removed from most platforms, called Who Killed You with David Newman. And it's very, very vague too. But Nina was a part-time business student at Northwest Arkansas Community College and also held a part-time position at Walmart as a loss prevention employee. She did that to help pay for her college education. She lived in the Law Quad apartments at 701 West Sycamore Street in Fayetteville, Arkansas. The apartment complex has since changed names to Club at the Creek. Now, the area around the apartment complex when Nina lived there was a very high crime area, and it had all sorts of actors such as your drug dealers, your prostitutes, and your gang activity. And as far as I could find, and the details around this case, like we've said, are slim, Nina basically slept and showered at her apartment. She would use her boyfriend's truck as a means of transportation, and he also worked at Walmart third shift stocking. Now, Nina didn't show up for her shift at Walmart on April 22nd, 2006, so the store contacted her mother to find out if she knew where Nina was. The mom had not heard from her and sent Nina's brother to go to her apartment to check on her. So the brother gets one of his friends to go with him, and unfortunately, they discover Nina's deceased body on her bed. She was fully clothed with her coat on, cell phone in her pocket, and her purse was sitting next to her on the bed. Nothing in the apartment would lead investigators to know how she had passed away. There was no forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no signs of assault of any kind. And once authorities do get there and coroner arrives, they figure out that she had died from ligature strangulation, and that ligature was a strand of Christmas lights. Now, this led authorities to theorize that this was not a premeditated murder, because that murder weapon was a weapon of opportunity. Now, authorities quickly rule out Nina's boyfriend because he had a rock-solid alibi. He was working at Walmart. They soon zone in on a suspect named Rico Cohn. And from what I could gather, Nina knew him or was acquainted with him only because he was a maintenance worker at the apartment complex. Now, there were no signs of a struggle, and everybody knew that Nina stated that if she had seen her attacker coming, she would have fought back. So that led everyone to believe that she had been surprised by her attacker, or she walked in on a robbery and didn't see the people in her apartment. Now, she could have been attacked, and we'll get to it, as she's entering the apartment. But like I said, there's no signs of a struggle. There's no, scuff marks on her shoes. There's no scuff marks on the floor. None of that stuff. So the motive was lost on the detectives due to the fact that there was nothing missing from the apartment, and Nina was not sexually assaulted or assaulted in any form. Now, this maintenance worker that she knew, Rico, was allegedly lying in wait and saw Nina come home, and there was a brief conversation. Now, there had been some history between Nina and Rico, and investigators would later determine that Rico had made advances toward Nina in the past, and she would just kind of brush him off, not rude or disrespectful. She would just, giggle, "No, not tonight. I got a boyfriend," and didn't go into her apartment. Nothing vile, but she'd basically let him know, you're barking up the wrong tree. Rico had recently been fired from the apartment complex, and a witness came forward stating that they saw Rico enter Nina's apartment after she got home. Now, this witness allegedly tells a female member of the local gang, and this lady's name is Randy, Randee Applewhite, that what she had seen. So Randy knows Rico, and she's like, "Oh, really? Well, let's go see what Rico has to say." And so she confronts him. Allegedly, Rico confesses to Randy that he had killed Nina, and the reason was she disrespected him in front of his friends.
Who just randomly confesses to murder, though? I mean, come on. Was he drunk? Was he high?
I'm thinking the latter.
"Hey, man, did you kill Nina?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I did. She disrespected my boy." Like, come on.
I think he was a little high, and I think that he was thinking that this Randy, who was a gang member, was not about to snitch on him.
Well, that's true. I mean, you might think that you can confide in your boy, but come on.
Well, no, I agree. Now, Randy is picked up on a drug charge, and as soon as she realizes that they are about to put her ass in prison, she's like, "Hey, I know this guy. he supposedly killed this girl. So she tells authorities that Rico and some of his friends were at the complex, and they were sitting in the parking lot and started catcalling and coming on to women that were walking to their apartments when Nina pulls up. So Rico, full of piss and vinegar, and his boys behind him, I guess, gives his best go at it, and she turns him down. And it sounds like his boys make fun of his ass for her turning him down again.
Well, that's not good when you get embarrassed in front of your boys, like for real. Like, I saw a thing today that said that the thing most people fear in life is public humiliation. So,
yeah, that's true. But see, I don't.
People take that very seriously if you humiliate them in front of their friends.
That is, yeah, I agree with you. Here's what I don't say. The authorities are saying it's not premeditated, but according to Randy, the gang member, she says that Rico didn't go after Nina that night, that he was at the apartment complex a few days later to buy some marijuana and saw Nina walking into her apartment. That's when he follows her and basically walks right in behind her and I guess blitz attacks her, grabs the Christmas lights, and strangles her. Now, Rico was arrested in 2012. So she passed away in 2006. Yeah, 2006. Here's another thing I don't understand. They keep saying Christmas lights, but I have a feeling it's not really Christmas lights. It's probably one of those fake plants that has the little white lights going up the thing as a little... Everybody's seen them. So I guess Christmas lights is just easier to say. She was killed in April. You're not going to have your Christmas lights up in April. So you've got Rico being arrested in 2012. You've got the case is going to trial pretty, I wouldn't say quickly. It does get a trial date of 2015. However, Randy Applewhite becomes sick just before the trial in 2015, and she is rushed into surgery. Now, from what I could find, it was she either suffered from a ruptured appendix or ruptured gallbladder. Either way, she dies in surgery, and now the only quote air quote witness is dead. And apparently just before Randy became ill, she had made a statement recanting that Rico had confessed to her. Now, charges against Rico are dismissed, and we now have a legal drama unfolding with the defense stating that Rico is free and clear because of the double jeopardy. Prosecutors are saying that double jeopardy does not come into play because the, quote, witness, Randy Applewhite, recanted her testimony, and that is the reason they dropped the charges, not because the witness died. So, the Fayetteville police are stating or have stated that they are still keeping Nina's case open and they are investigating all leads. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is the case. You can find a couple of news snips about when it was going to trial, about when Rico was arrested. But it went on for a while before they made an arrest. So, and like Coach said, it's a shame that this does not have more publicity. I just don't know how you would go about finding anything other than sitting down with her mother. And since we're 3 states away, that's kind of difficult. So that's the Nina Ingram case. I really don't have an opinion on it because we just don't have enough information for me to form an opinion. My only concern with the Rico situation, or Rico Cone, not Rico charges, Rico Cone as a suspect or as the guy that did it, it sounds like the prosecution hung their hat on a gang member stool pigeon. that was trying to lessen her sentence when she got pinched. If that's their only witness, why jeopardize it? I don't know, man. And then the other thing is, she supposedly was told by someone that witnessed him confessing, I guess is the best thing. Or no, witnessed him going into her apartment. So again, it's very odd. Now, the other thing that Coach alluded to in the opening was an update on the West Memphis 3. And that is, if I can get to it, let's hope this thing don't play. Mute. No. Mute. Okay, good. All right, so we had all heard about I think it was, when was it? According to Fox 13 Memphis, 5 days ago, the Arkansas Supreme Court reversed a 2022 ruling denying the request to test evidence from the 1993 crime scene for new DNA, which I thought was horse shit anyway. So they did step in and say, no, we're going to test it. And that was, I think, 5 days ago is what the AP and Fox 13 in Memphis is reporting. The deal with this, the way it came to our attention was, again, in the group page, we have our lovely couple that has sent us care packages, the Winfords, and Coach fell in love with his wrestling t-shirt. So
hell yes, I love that. I love that shirt because it hits home. I wasn't like really old enough to appreciate Memphis wrestling, but as I grew up, I appreciate Memphis wrestling so much.
So what we found out is the devil in the details is what Miss Winford actually posted a picture to the Patreon thing of her sitting down with the former lead attorney in the West Memphis 3 case. And from what I can gather, Dan Stidham, who was the lead prosecutor in the original 1993 case, is sharing for the first time stuff that he kind of kept close to the vest. And he says, quote, "The killer is alive today. I'm sure of it. And he's written a book, A Harvest of Innocence, the untold story of the West Memphis 3 murder case." He goes on to state, and quote, "I wanted to make sure there was an actual truthful account of what happened, the things that I couldn't talk about 30 years ago," end quote. Now, the article states that that's why he wrote this new book so long after. It's almost like there was like this, I don't know, he signed some non-disclosure. It's what it sounds like. Because, I mean, he's waited 30 years and he is saying that he didn't write the book sooner because he didn't like the way the Alfred plea played out. He said he didn't want to paint a target on any of them and release his book right after they had the Alfred plea. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, West Memphis 3 is probably one of the most famous cases. It was the satanic panic case that came to a head.
Well, like when they offered the Alfred plea, Jason Baldwin did not want to take it.
Yeah, he was 10 toes down. I'm not doing it.
He was dug in, ready to say, hell no, we're going to keep fighting this until we're found innocent, blah, 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 blah. And then I don't know if Damian Eccles reached out to him or the lawyers. I don't know exactly what happened.
I think it was the lawyers.
It probably was. But they were like, look, man, your friend is on death row. This is a way to get him off. Get him off death row, make him free. And that is the reason Jason Baldwin agreed to do the Alford plea. It is a 100% miscarriage of justice that these three guys took the Alford plea. Unfortunately, Jason Misskelley.
No. Jesse Misskelley.
What? Say that again.
Jesse Misskelley.
What did I say? Jason?
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry. Jesse Misskelley, unfortunately, is a mentally disabled person. I would say that he is mildly mentally disabled, but he was put under so many hours of interrogation.
And that's what he says in this article, is that at the time he was working part-time for a public defender, and said that I had children the same age as the children who were murdered, and my natural instincts, because that's what I went to law school for, is to help people. What he didn't realize was he literally, and this is what the way I read it, says, quote, nobody wanted to touch Mr. Misskelley's case because he, quote unquote, confessed. And so I'm not the most popular guy in West Memphis anymore, he said. But he goes on to state that after talking with talking with his client, that what Misskelley told investigators was anything but the truth. He said, the kid's telling me he's there, but he can't get the story right. And it's like, if you saw something like this happen, you would remember it, because it would be so traumatic of an event, you would remember every detail.
Well, right. I mean, and that's exactly right. And like, you go back to the Making a Murderer case. I can't remember the kid's name, but the kid's name, the kid that was mentally handicapped in that case, when you're being interrogated for hours and hours, and you're mentally handicapped, and they tell you, if you tell us what happened, you can go home.
And all he wanted to do was go home and watch wrestling.
And all they want to go, the Making the Murder case.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do was go home and watch WrestleMania. If they say over and over again, if you just tell us what happened, you can go home. Eventually, normal cognitive functioning people could break. But you're dealing with mentally handicapped people.
Yeah.
They will break. They will tell you whatever you want to hear in order to go home. It is unreal. It's unreal what happened to these three kids.
Yeah, Stidham said that Misskelley couldn't keep the details straight, and so he literally thought this was going to be a slam dunk because it was a false confession defense, and it would be okay. But he didn't realize that false confession would be the first legal try at it. And as we all know, it didn't work because the jury convicted Eccles, sentenced him to death, and sentenced Baldwin and Misskelley to life in prison. Stidham claims that it was a case study in wrongful convictions, and I happen to agree with him. So 18 years after they're convicted in 2011, they are released on the Alford plea, and that is a guilty plea where the defendants maintain their innocence, but the state gets to keep the conviction. It was an ugly way out of an even uglier situation for the state of Arkansas, and I don't like it. Even though the West Memphis 3 are free, they are not exonerated, stated Stidham. So this brings us full circle as to why he's now a judge in Paragould, Arkansas, as to why he waited now to share his side of the story. He said that life happened and I lost a child that kind of derailed the project for a few months so I could grieve. But I also learned what these parents must have felt like, probably. I got 34 years out of my son, but they only got 8 with theirs. So I wanted to make sure I poured my experience of grief through the filter. He says that he also believes he knows the identity of the real killer. He believes that justice will be served for the original 3 boys that were murdered, as well as the West Memphis 3 Miss Kelly, Baldwin, and Eccles. Quote, I believe we could get some good results back as early as next month. Results from the new DNA testing the court has allowed. Now we got new technology and can amplify this stuff. And so we have a real good chance of finding out who did this, end quote.
I know that on this podcast, we, after learning our lesson that one time from me, we try not to speculate on who did it and why. But in this case, I can't help but point the finger at someone.
Well, supposedly something popped across my Facebook page, and we are members of a shit ton of groups when it comes to stuff. But I saw something. Somebody has gone out, and I'm gonna tell you something. If this is true, if this little exchange is true, they have bite marks from one of the internet's best suspect, because I'm not saying his name. I don't want to be killed. I don't want to be
sued.
Yeah.
If you know this case and you've watched the 3 HBO documentaries, Paradise Lost, or if you watch the independent documentary West of Memphis, we don't have to say his name. We don't.
Yeah, it's so the West Memphis page that we're a part of is the West Memphis 3 Friends page. And so somebody made a hell of a post about how they felt like one of the kids had what it looks like is road rash from concrete, and the only concrete in the area was the culvert. And so that would lead them to believe that they were killed at the culvert, and then the bindings or the ligatures were used to transport them. And then, like I said, they had, there it is. Now I don't have to talk out of my ass. It's pictures of the road rash as well as bite marks from some dentures. And I'm only going to assume that they found those dentures in the trash. Y'all, when we did this as a full-blown episode, the Oxygen Network documentary, 3-part documentary, West of Memphis, or the real, I think
it was the Lost West Memphis 3, I believe was what it was called.
The Forgotten West Memphis 3, that's what it was called.
Yeah, you're right. That's it.
And that is probably some of the best since the original documentaries. So I don't know. We had toyed around with doing an episode about, because there's still a ton of people out there that think that Eccles, Miss Kelly, and Baldwin are guilty, and we had toyed around with doing, kind of a, we don't believe this, but this is the other side of the coin. It's just hard for me to even wrap my brain around that, because their arguments for a lot of things that they state is what makes those 3 young men guilty has been disproven time and time again. So it's just an odd situation. Hopefully we do get some new DNA testing. If you are interested in this, I would seriously look into Mr. Stidham's book, which I will try to tell you the name of it again. But since I'm not very smart, I can't find it on the... Oh, there it is. It is A Harvest of Innocence, the untold story of the West Memphis 3 murder case. And that is by Judge Dan Stidham now. So we wanted to bring that up. Also, there was one, I've not been able to research it, so I may just sit on this one, because we're going to sound silly because I've not done anything. So that's That's what I'll do. I'll just sit on it, and then I'll do a little bit of research. And there's another famous case that's gotten some traction in the last couple of days that we'll try to we've not done that case as a full Tuesday episode, so we may, and then throw in the update at the end. But we just wanted to bring light to Nina Ingram's story tonight, as well as give you an update on what's going on with the West Memphis 3. So, recommendations. I am going to once again recommend Reacher on Amazon Prime. Season 3 has begun, and I'm 2 episodes in, and they release them, I think, every Thursday. So the 4th episode, I think, will be dropping this week. If you like the Lee Child books, the Amazon Prime series does a real good job of following those books each season.
No, I really, really enjoy the Reacher series on Amazon Prime. I think that's great.
They're supposed to do a spinoff on the lady that's the private detective that's with him. Can't think of her name.
Really?
Yeah. They're supposed to give her like how she got started in being a private detective. I guess after they disbanded that unit. So, but anyway, you got one of their recommendations?
Absolutely, I do. It's called Noble. It is a podcast. It is about the Tri-State Crematory just outside of Lafayette, Georgia, which is not far from either one of us.
No, and when we first started this, my then 12-year-old wanted to go do a ghost tour or ghost investigation up there, and we made no bones about it that he could go by himself. We'd wait in the truck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're damn right. I ain't going up there. There's no freaking way I would go up there. But it really is, it's truly like about an hour away from both of us if we kind of met in the middle and then went west just a little bit. So, yeah. The Tri-State Crematory, where they were not cremating anyone.
They wouldn't even hide them.
They were basically throwing bodies into a pond and then giving the families like urns full of freaking gravel
and concrete dust.
And concrete dust. Yeah, you're right. But they've made a 5 or 6 I can't remember, 5, 6, 7 episode podcast about it. I've only listened to like the first 2. If you are interested in things like that, it is gruesome. If you are not queasy, it's very well done, and it's look into it. It's
yeah, it was bad when it first started. Yeah, yeah, it is. All right, Coach, you got anything else you want to tell them?
Well, you know I don't.
Well, deuces.